Hi guys, Will here, and today I'll be reviewing the Ronin SC, a stabilization rig from DJI. I've been using this for the past couple of months, and so far I've found it super helpful for filming videos. The Ronin SC is very well suited for smaller mirrorless cameras, so if you do have a heavier camera or a larger DSLR, it is worth checking out the compatibility list before you buy this one. The Ronin SC comes in at two price points, $279 for the basic kit or $329 for the Pro version. The only difference being is that the Pro version comes with a follow focus kit to use with your cine lenses or manual lenses to pull focus while you're filming. The Ronin SC weighs in at 1.7 kilos all set up. It has a payload of 2 kilos, so it's very well suited for lighter cameras, but not so much for the heavier ones. The Ronin SC has a battery life of 11 hours, but that's with it very well balanced. If it is not balanced too well, then the battery life does suffer a bit. You can also jerry rig up a battery pack like this one here, which will extend the battery life a whole lot more. So I have, however, not found too many issues with batteries running down whilst I've been filming with it. The Ronin SC has been a really good all-around stabilization rig, and so far I haven't had any quarrels with it. It hasn't played up or anything while I've been using it, so it is great for getting those really smooth, steady shots. With that being said, let's take a look at what's inside the box. So first up, you've got the battery grip, and on the grip itself there's a button for you to be able to check how much battery's left by the LED indicators. There's also a mini tripod which screws straight into the bottom of the battery grip, and then it's got folding out legs which makes it easier to put the stabilization rig down instead of having to hold on to it all the time. And this is the gimbal itself, and it just slides straight into the battery grip, and then there's a sliding lock that you just pull over to lock it in place. Now each axis on the rig itself has a lock. So it's really easy to balance each axis at a time. You just unlock whichever one you're balancing first. Next up in the kit is the plate that connects straight onto the bottom of your camera, and this allows to make adjustments to the tilt on the gimbal, and you can also save the position that you set the tilt to by sliding this little slide along, and there's a scale there to be able to save whereabouts it was sitting. On the back too, there's a scale for heavier cameras and lighter cameras, so you put the screw into the bottom of the camera and position it depending on how heavy or light your camera is. There's also an arrow at the top, and that has to go facing towards the lens when you connect it. As well in the packet, there's some Allen wrenches and extra screws, a USB-C to micro USB connector, the follow focus motor, and also the adjustment dial too, which connects straight onto the side of the gimbal. There's a smartphone mount, and this is used for the follow focus tracking in the mobile app, and you can either attach it to the side of the gimbal or straight onto the hot shoe mount on the top of your camera. And there's also these extra control cables, and that's to connect the gimbal itself to the camera. So next up we have to connect the sliding plate to the camera. I'm just using this SLR camera that I had around the studio, like so. And then making sure that arrow is pointing towards the lens. Screw it down. Now I use a screwdriver just to nip that screw up, because I found that when you're using the 360-degree roll feature, it can cause the plate to come loose if it's not tightened firmly. So it pays to just nip it up a little bit with the screwdriver. You don't have to go crazy, but just a little bit. For this to slide onto the gimbal, the bottom screw has to be loosened. Now the gimbal works by balancing 3 different axes: the tilt, the roll, and also the pan axis. Now, when you're balancing these, you usually start off with the tilt axis, and to do that, there's a lock on the tilt axis up on the arm here. So you unlock that, and straight away you can see that it's not balanced correctly. So the first thing we do is loosen that screw off at the bottom and just move the sliding plate around until it stays by itself without having to hold it. Once you've got it right, you nip it back up. Now with that tilt balance, you also check the up and down tilt. If that needs adjusting, there's a screw on the side of the arm here which you loosen, and you move the arm in and out until you get it right. Usually when you first go to set it, instead of it staying like that, it'll like swing down, but yeah, you want it so that it doesn't move in whichever angle that you put it. So that's all good. We lock off the tilt axis and then move on to the roll axis. To unlock the roll axis, there's a lock on the side of the arm here. So you unlock that. And if it's unbalanced, you loosen the bottom screw again and move the camera in or out until it's balanced. There's also this little ratchet mechanism. It's kind of clicky. And that makes it much easier to balance as well, because instead of it just moving freely, every notch that you move it in, it locks it in place. Tighten that off. And then lastly is the pan axis. So we'll lock off the roll axis, and the pan axis lock is right on the base here. Unlock that, and then make the arm and camera parallel to you and move the whole gimbal assembly over. And if the arm swings left or right, you can adjust this by loosening this screw, and then the arm will move in or out until it's just right. Once all three axes are set, you can unlock every single one. Make sure it's still right, and if it is, you can power it on by holding the power switch on the side. The next step is to download the DJI Ronin app, and once you've got that installed on your phone and the gimbal itself is turned on, you connect to the gimbal via Bluetooth. You can also do a balance test within the app, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. You do have to put the gimbal on an incline of at least 15 degrees or more before you do the test. So how does it work? Well, basically by making micro adjustments to the pan, tilt and roll axis, it holds the camera steady and removes any unwanted movement in your filming. So to operate this one, if you hold the trigger down, it will keep the camera steady and it will hold the camera in place. Another word used for camera stabilizers is gimbals, and other industries that gimbals are used in are aerospace. When a space shuttle is taking off, it uses a gimbal to vector the thrust in different directions as it's ascending. With that being said, it's time to head outside and test some of the other mobile functions in the Ronin app. There's a tracking feature that allows you to set up different waypoints for the gimbal to point to if you're filming by yourself and you need the camera to move but you not be behind the gimbal or tripod. So I've set up 3 different waypoints with different times at each point. There's also the active track feature, which allows you to track subjects without having to be behind the gimbal itself. So you can set it down, select your subject on the screen, and it will track it around. Firstly, you have to mount it to the phone holder and then attach it to the top of your camera. So that'll obviously require you to rebalance the gimbal once you've attached it. Once you've got it as close as you can, I recommend doing the automatic tune. So just go into your menu here once you've turned it on, go into motor parameters and then select auto tune. Simply select Active Track Pro in the Ronin app and then draw a box on the mobile screen for what you want to track. To enable the 3D roll feature, open the DJI app and click on User Profile, and then under the side menu there'll be 3D Roll 360. Select that and then move the joystick. It does this cool 360 degree roll. If you find that the camera is way out of sorts and you just want to get back to the original position you started in, you can just double tap the trigger and it goes back to the original position. If you want to use it as like a selfie stick, you can triple tap the trigger, and you might be walking around and it moves around a bit. If you're not holding down the trigger, you just triple tap the trigger again and it comes back to the original position. So there's three main modes while you're using the Ronin SC. The first is sport mode. So to activate that, you simply hold down the M button and the green light on the back changes from green to yellow, and that's how you know you're in sport mode. And that makes it so the motors on the gimbal are super responsive. So that's great for if you're trying to catch like an action shot, someone like running past really fast. You can quickly swing the Ronin SC around and it'll catch it really well. The other one is flashlight mode. So if you hold down the trigger and point it forward like a flashlight, that's kind of another mode to put the gimbal in. And lastly, there's underslung mode, and to enable that you simply hold down the trigger and then flip the Ronin SC all the way around and hold it in like an underslung mode, and that's great for getting those low facing shots when you're walking beside someone or a subject. Also, the MotionLapse feature is a great way to level up your time lapses. Here's a couple that I took to give you an idea of what they look like. The setup is quite easy. You just simply put in two different waypoints, how many photos you want taken and how often, and it goes through panning around and taking all the shots to make a time lapse. And the follow focus system is also super easy to use once you have it mounted to the Ronin SC. It is important to calibrate the lens that you're using along with the focus wheel, and to do this you simply double press the button next to the focus wheel on the side of the tripod. This will make sure that it knows all the parameters for the band that you've attached to the lens to make sure it stops when it should. If you don't do this, it definitely doesn't work properly, it only moves part of the way, so that's definitely an important step. A slight downside to this setup is trying to use your smartphone for live monitoring. This was one of the appeals that I thought when I purchased this, that you could use your smartphone mounted on the side with the smartphone holder, but during setting it up and everything, there seems to be quite a delay between what's shown through the camera lens and what you see on the display on the back of the camera and what's being displayed on the smartphone screen. This is just a heads up for anyone that is a Sony user and is using the Android phone to try and live monitor. It's not going to work too well. Instead, I would opt for a different live monitoring setup, something from Atmos like the Ninja or Flame, that has a direct connection with your camera. That's probably going to be the way to go. So basically you're getting an 11-hour battery life, super lightweight setup, some great mobile features such as 360 degree roll and MotionLapse, and all around this is definitely going to improve the way that you make movies and take super smooth footage. I can easily recommend the Ronin SC for anyone that's looking for a super lightweight setup that you can just attach to your camera bag. That's what I do with mine. I just clip it in with some straps and it hangs outside of the camera bag. And you know, it's great for all day shoots and something that's not super heavy and gonna be a real burden by the end of the day. Well, that's all from me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.